Let's go! Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Folks, I kind of knew this was happening. I knew it was going to go down, and I'm one of the few people that definitely that's been saying this no matter what. That I expected that it was going to happen. Oklahoma and Texas are indeed going to the SEC starting in 2024. All this BS talk from a week ago that said they were going to wait till 2025, it was already too ugly. It was pretty clear that that it was going to go down, and there's a few reasons for it, but to sum up the overall gist of it, it pretty much goes down because, well, Brett Yormark is smarter than the Big 12 deserves in terms of who its commissioner is. That's right. After a slew of kind of bumbling morons being in charge of the Big 12, as the lion's share of this conference has made its way out over the past decade and a half, they kind of hit gold with Yormark. And sure, it's true that he's only here to just kind of usher out the last of the Blue Bloods, into another conference. But by him coming in here and doing this and making sure that this happened, even after a week ago when he was saying that this wasn't going to go down, leaking it through certain people, he knew that in order to keep the Big 12 relevant the last of the relevancy is leaving in 2024. But if he wants to renew relevancy for this conference, he knew that it was time to get this problem out of the way and start on the next thing, which is beat George Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 to the punch in every way, shape, and form that he possibly could. Starting with, I would shut down that SMU move right now if I'm Yormark. Get them out of the way. Go ahead and give them, they could start as early as 2024 if that's what they want to do. I would do that immediately. And the other thing is, you better get started on Coach Prime, the Colorado Buffaloes, Utah, and the 2 Arizona schools, because the other way to make this conference have any kind of relevancy moving forward is to make sure that you strengthen it as the best basketball conference in the country, which it has become over the last 4 to 5 seasons, and bringing in Arizona State, both of whom are top level programs at this point. There's just all there is to it. And I mean, as I said, when you start looking at what has happened in the past, when you've got guys like Bob Bowlsby that has just been asleep on the freaking job from day one, and then the people that preceded him as well, allowing everybody to get out of this conference that was ever a major part of it. This is the only way that it could happen. Once it became obvious that UT and Oklahoma were leaving, the only chance that you had was to go ahead and get them out. And you know what? He went ahead and tried to keep them happy, made sure that he got $100 million out of the Blue Bloods before they left. I'm guessing, and they haven't announced this yet, but you're probably looking at a couple of games, coming in, playing in these home stadiums for the Big 12. After the fact, you have my guess is when it comes to Texas, they have home series set up with Michigan and Ohio State in the future. They're probably going to have to trade at least one of those games to Fox in order to make them happy. Oklahoma could do the same thing probably, or the chances are they could have the first Red River game that was going to be Fox's anyway in 2024. They could go ahead and let them broadcast that as well. I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but my guess is there's something along those lines. When it comes to the 99-year deal, good luck. That's probably going to end up in court. At best, they'll probably do half of that. At more than likely, it'll be somewhere in the $30 million range to be paid somewhere down the line, whatever. Here's the bottom line when it comes to Brett Yormark. If he waited and allowed Oklahoma and Texas to stay through 2024 and leave after the grant of rights was over with, the conference gets nothing. They have no way of making their league members, the whiny eight, whole again. No way to do that anymore. So yeah, it's for the windfall. No, it's a windfall for Texas and Oklahoma. Anyway, let me finish and then we'll kind of get into what you guys are saying. So essentially, they were going to walk away, and the Big 12 is going to get nothing out of it. You know, no money to make the whiny eight happy, none. And good luck, as I said, with this whole 99-year deal. I think that there's a lot of holes that you can punch in that thing as to, some of the responsibilities of the conference itself, of which, as I said, Bob Bowlsby and those like him have done very little to improve this conference to the point that you would want to be here if you have an opportunity to go elsewhere. And make no mistake, all this stuff from the whiny eight that I keep calling them that because they are that, good and well that if your school had an opportunity to go to the ACC or to the SEC, or the Big Ten, you'd be on the next flight out. Couldn't wait to do so. Absolutely, Oklahoma and Texas wins. Lone Wolf, absolutely they win. And I'll tell you why. Because again, they're going to go, and as Corey said, my buddy on Twitter, he said an awful lot of times, you know what? Now you just get to go get those fat cash checks from being in the SEC, plus that recruiting bump that's going to come with it every year. And you don't have to worry about the relevancy moving forward either. As long as you were in this conference and you had these bumbling idiots running the conference, it was going to be this way. It was going to be this way. Period. Bottom line is that this had to happen, and Yormark knew it had to happen. He knew it did, because now he can focus on keeping and strengthening the Big 12. Because as of now, as I said, you just became a G5 conference. Now you can change that by making sure that you go get Colorado to come back, that you go get Utah to come back, and you have the holy war that goes on every year within the conference, that you go get those Arizona schools that, they may not be great at football at the moment, but they'll get better. Arizona State, in particular, has a really, really good team, a really good coach that's going to be coming together. And I know there's going to be they're talking about them being on probation and doing some stuff like that. The chances are none of that will hold because of the fact that the NCAA doesn't have any teeth. And so, what's going to end up happening is the Pac-12, it's like I said, well, when you look at it, this was the only way that the Big 12 staves off the inevitable fate of the Pac-12, which is now relegated to begging San Diego State to join the conference in hopes of trying to keep it alive in some way, shape, or form. Now, it isn't going to work. The Big Ten is soon going to try to make happy USC and UCLA. Guaranteed they're going to do that. Because there's no way that USC and UCLA are going to stay happy very long, only playing teams in the Midwest for their away games. Now, I would say, who cares about that? If you're us, you don't care, right? But there's a reason why they brought them two along. And if they are ever able to say to Notre Dame, hey, either join a league or miss out on this 12-team playoff, then you're going to see them come into the Big Ten more than likely as well. If that happens, you have to go and get Stanford, which will make you have to get Cal. And then obviously you're probably going to be looking at Oregon and Washington as well. And this makes it to where you don't have to make that many trips. It makes you a more nationwide conference, which is what the Big Ten was looking to do before it looked like everybody kind of pushed Kevin Warren to the side. Yeah. Okay. In any event, and that's another option there too with the Big 12. That I've heard some different thoughts about them possibly keeping some of their independence by kind of joining the Big 12 or playing a Big 12 slate and possibly having a chance to go for that conference championship, kind of the way they did with the ACC a few years ago during COVID. Um, that's all. Everything is up in the air at this point. But what I'm going to tell you is that Klyavkov has started to move late. They're about 7 months away from a starting a conference season without a television partner because they can't even get the amount of money that the Big 12 has gotten, and the Big 12 could theoretically even make this contract a lot better if they go and do what I just said and get those four corner schools. You get the Arizona schools, you get Utah, and you get Colorado, and you make the deal sweet for them, like you have for these other schools. You just have to do it. The one person that obviously understands this, and it had to be an outsider, Brett Yormark. Being from the inside of this conference has done no good when it comes to this to the commissionership. Yeah. Yeah, this it would have been over with if they could have done this right after James. That's a great point. You know what? The Pac could have done this immediately after Oklahoma and Texas announced that they were going to the SEC, and they turned their nose up at it yet again. And it's funny to me. And what is it all over? It's all over the fact that they're Christian schools that are within the conference that they didn't want to take because they're that not believing God kind of folks out there in that conference. Look, that's an argument for somewhere else. We're not going to have it here. But the bottom line is simple to me. They shot themselves not in the foot, in the head when it came to this thing. They could have stepped on the Big 12's throat while Bob Bowlsby was still in charge, twisted, and moved along their merry way. And now they don't get to. Now, if you're SMU, yeah, you could make that move, but why would you? If all Yormark has to do is say, hey, that's not going to go down. Go ahead and join the Big 12. That's over with. All he has to do is go ahead and do the same. He could absolutely kill all their chances of anything happening and go secure San Diego State as well, which would be a nice football addition to the Big 12. It would be really a nice addition to the Big 12. And now you have a recruiting footprint within the state, and you further drive the nail in that coffin. When you get Utah, Colorado, which you cannot even really I don't think it can be overstated, the Coach Prime factor in that. I had people that were talking on one of my videos the other day about that it isn't going to matter and all this kind of stuff, that Colorado doesn't want to go back to the Big 12. They don't have any alumni in Texas. First off, that's trash and BS. Number two, you know what matters when it comes to that? Coach Prime. He's been living in Dallas forever. He coached high school football in Dallas. You don't think that he can sit there and recruit the hell out of the state of Texas? It literally, I would, before anybody else, I would camp out in Boulder, Colorado until that happened. Period. And don't think for 1 second that that's not what's going to happen. Yeah, at least 3. Okay, maybe. But at this point, the ACC is kind of there until 2037, just because of the fact that, they have that long deal that with ESPN that's so punitive for anybody to get out of it. That's not going anywhere anytime soon. But if you don't want to be the one that's left out in the cold, because at the end of that deal, more than likely, if they make them stick that deal out until the end of the ACC and really kind of hurt their chances to remain, if you're Clemson and you don't really have a chance to remain relevant because of the fact that you have this stupid punitive deal with ESPN, and so you can't get out and you can't go to either the SEC or the Big Ten, which it would probably be the SEC. The same with Miami. even Georgia Tech, a lot of people say that'll never happen again. But with new schools coming in that didn't have any part of that, list or whatever that they say is out there that says that this school and that school can never come back. I would tell you that things are going to change and the landscape of this thing is going to change tremendously. And no matter what happens, the Pac-12 could right now go out and get SMU. They could go out and get San Diego State. They could get Utah. Apparently, they can get Utah to hang around for a little while. I don't know what it is that he's telling those guys at Utah that's making them think that it's going to matter. See what? I don't know. I don't even know where you think this is. You don't see any conferences. Did you see any conferences going to where they are at this point, Weston? Because I got to tell you that all of this has changed in a matter of what, 18 months now. All of this has completely changed, and there's no telling what's going to happen. There's no telling what's going to happen. There may be 3 conferences. There may be 4 even. I could see there being 4. I really could, because of the fact that the ACC is not really going anywhere because of that deal. Okay, the Pac-12 is toast. All it's going to take, and no matter if those presidents right now are saying we don't want to expand, when your conference is going to be, you're going to have people within the conference that are going to be saying, hey, we need to do this and we need to make this happen. It'll just take a small bit. And really all it'll take is for the SEC to start hinting like they might be adding some more schools. Yeah, they could be. They could be, Norwoodley. But I'm going to tell you, that deal, again, it makes it difficult for anybody to go. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge buyout, even bigger than what the Big 12 would have been. And I want to say that there's some different little things that are going to happen, that you would have to have like half of the teams leave before that they could cut all that stuff. I don't know that that's going to happen, but believe me, the second that the SEC starts looking like it's going to try to poach, and that's the other thing with it, is that ESPN and SEC are tied at the hip. They're exclusive when it comes to each other. The ESPN has the exclusive deal with the ACC. The SEC is not going to crap on its television partner. It's not going to do it. Now, unless they can figure out something between the network and the SEC and ACC, that's probably not happening real soon. Now, you could see a merger coming of it. I think that you could. I really think that you could. But that would only trigger the Big Ten to definitely start looking to get bigger, which then you go after Oregon, Washington for sure. Notre Dame is definitely going to be, you're going to have to back up the Brinks truck for them to do it because they don't really need it. They don't really need the money at this point. The only thing that you could definitely do to force them, as coaches said, into the league would be to say, hey, you're not going to be able to play in the playoff if you don't. But I can tell you now, all of this is coming. All this is coming. It could be over the next 7 to 10 years, but believe me, it's coming, right? Yeah. Yeah, it has to be meaningful. But okay, so let's look at it this way, James. Each edition, yeah, of course it has to be meaningless. But let's say there's meaningful teams that you could pull into the SEC, starting with Miami and Florida State. Okay, that would get you, Alabama may hate that, but that's definitely going to get you. You own now the Speed State, right? Then Clemson, you've got. I mean, they're the only other team that's broken through, aside from you've had one Big Ten champion in the playoff era, and the rest of them, you've got 2 to the ACC, and the rest all went to the SEC. So they already dominated. So they're going to want to keep those ones intact. These are meaningful moves. Because if the Big Ten goes and says, okay, yeah, we want to get, I could see that like maybe Duke and Carolina being probably more apt to go to the Big Ten than the SEC, even though you could consider them from the South. Duke is far from a team from the South. It's just like they're stuck down in the South, but that doesn't mean that they're of the South, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, they'd be name brands. They would. And I could definitely, and that's the other thing. Everybody, including myself, we keep throwing Notre Dame into the Big Ten because it lives smack dab in the middle of the Big Ten. But do not think for a second that the SEC wouldn't love to put that feather in its hat and bring Notre Dame down there. Now, the league itself and the fans in the league may hate that idea and probably do. But believe me, I can tell you now, that would guaranteed, that's starting a war right there. And I love it. I love it. The bottom line is that there's nothing there that's going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that there's nothing off the table. There's nothing that you could sit here and say it will never go down. There's not. Because the truth of it is, who thought that the Big Ten would have stabbed the Pac-12 in the back in the first place and killed the Rose Bowl, or 100 years worth of them being together in that same boat and them being partners in the Rose Bowl and everything else? Nobody saw that coming. I certainly didn't, especially after their little quote unquote handshake deal that they have between the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12. You know, yeah, they're not bringing any value. They're staying right where they are. They're staying right where they are. The SEC is not going to want them until that would be their schools like Okie Light are going to be like the last of it. That would be the end game. My feeling is this: is right now the next move that the SEC probably tries to make, unless it's Notre Dame, would probably be those ACC schools that we just talked about. That's where I feel. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime in the next couple of years or anything like that, but it's coming. There's no two ways around it. And I can tell you now, the second that they even here's the deal about Mizzou, that it's all about the prestige of the school. And Mizzou, when it comes to academics, is way above anything else. It was above most of the rest of the schools in the Big 12 when it was there. With their journalism school and everything else, Mizzou is more of a Southern school too than was Okie Light. And Okie Light has this inferiority complex too. If you were out there recruiting your butt off and acting like you mattered, instead of keeping around Coach Mediocrity and doing all that like the way that they do, then yeah, I could see them probably being in the running for it. But they're not. They're not. And in fact, they don't even look like they're. If you look at them today as they presently are right now, I'm going to tell you now, they're not even going to be relevant in the new Big 12 at this point. They're hemorrhaging players left and right, replacing a at least serviceable quarterback that has put them on the verge of winning the Big 12 with Oklahoma and Texas in it. They lost him, and they're replacing him with a guy that's been trash at both other places he's been at Michigan and Texas Tech. Even Texas Tech didn't want this dude. So I'm just going to say, bottom line is, if you look at right now, the SEC is definitely done with the Big 12 at this point. I could see them at some point making a move for the rest of them, or possibly, depending on what happens with Colorado and Coach Prime, I could see that one kind of coming to fruition. But this is all down the line. I think that now that Oklahoma and Texas are secured, I think that the SEC is going to be, for the time being, probably okay with staying where it is. But until it can add, say, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, something of those lines, then you might see them try to add somebody else. But don't get it twisted. The Big 12 needs to make a move, because if it doesn't, you're still going to have to worry about the same thing that you've been worrying about for the last decade and a half, which is the next domino to fall. You better do the best you can to strengthen it. And when it comes to the Pac-12, they should have, the olive branch that Yormark threw out there to start with, they should have freaking grabbed that sucker. They should have grabbed that sucker and held on tight. Yeah. Well, and that's, I've been saying this for a while. The only thing that the Pac-12 has left at this point is to rebrand the entirety of the Mountain West Conference as the Pac-12. Because I'm telling you, it's not going to be long. You're going to end up with Oregon and Washington out. They're going to the Big Ten. They'll never come to the Big 12, so they don't even need to bother with that. They're going to the Big Ten next. If Notre Dame goes, If Notre Dame goes, it'll be under the stipulation that you bring in Stanford as well, which will come under the stipulation that you bring in Cal. So there's 4 more gone from your Pac-12. You don't even have a 6-pack left. You don't even got a 6-pack left, man. They're drinking all your beer. So if it's me, yeah. Let's see what you guys are talking about here. Well, I'll open this up to you guys a little bit. I know you guys have been talking a lot. Oh, haters, bro. Haters. All I can tell you here is haters. There's a difference between Oklahoma and some of these other schools. Like they like to say Nebraska. Nebraska made a big mistake in leaving in the first place. And they certainly made a big mistake when they fired. They've had 2 coaches that they fired, Solich, and then they turned around and fired, what's his name? They were back and headed in the right direction. When you make stupid things like that, it kind of similar to what happened with Texas when they fired Mac. You go through these string of coaches that aren't capable of doing it, and maybe Matt Rule is, but this is not the case when it comes to Oklahoma. You know, let's be truthful here. We don't know for sure 100% that Brent Venables is a complete head coach at this point. Now, I can tell you that recruiting wise, he absolutely is. If he goes and he puts together another top 5 recruiting class next year, which you should expect that they will, right? Unless they just completely fell on their face this year. You would expect that he's going to put together another top 5 class. And you've got a 5-star quarterback that is, he was named Gatorade Player of the Year for high school. A lot of people think that he's going to come in and end up with the job by the end of the season, even if they're playing very well, that he's just that good. So we'll see, right? And then they're definitely, and then of course, Texas has been recruiting like this. It's not even really about Texas, but yeah, as far as when it goes to that, it's just a lot of hating and like wishing bad on them because they owned the conference and it's easy. Oh yeah, you shouldn't do this because now you're going to end up going and just being an also-ran in the SEC. Believe me, everybody that's saying that's a hopeful, wishful thinking for them to say that, right? Is right next to Texas and what? No, it wasn't Freeman. It was Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini. They should have brought Bo Pelini. They should have left Bo Pelini alone instead of firing him when they did. And then Solich, But in the end, that's not the same thing. And on top of that, Nebraska didn't have the access to the Texas athletes the way that Oklahoma always has, right? They didn't. What Nebraska did a very, very good job of in those days was to recruit the junior colleges like crazy, right? And I would think that Matt Rule probably knows that. But I would tell you that we'll see kind of what happens. Oklahoma's a hard place to recruit. Yeah, right. Okay. No, it isn't. I think right now the people that are saying that, that's a narrative that fits Mike Gundy's crap, which honestly, that's another thing. Now that Oklahoma's leaving, that should be helpful for you because you don't have to like sit in the background of Oklahoma anymore when it comes to the Big 12. You can bring in some of those players and get more 4-star guys and things like that. Whether they do or not is going to depend on whether or not they get Gundy out of there anytime. Bill Callahan was another guy that was decent. He wasn't really doing that well though. I think he had that one good year, but it was the Pelini time, and then for sure they shouldn't have gotten rid of Solich. He won a national championship. That was the last national championship was Solich's with the guy they just fired. Wasn't it? Man, that was a while back, but anyway, in '95. Yeah, no, it's not a hard place to recruit to. If you're a blue blood, that's why the whole thing when you had Tebow out there saying that you couldn't recruit the right guys to win a national championship at Oklahoma, everybody laughed because we all knew it was bullshit. Right? We all knew it was. It was just that he doesn't, and he's proven that even at Southern Cal, where they've never had a hard time, look, when Pete was there, they not only got the best offensive dudes to come there, they also got the nastiest defensive players too. It's just that Lincoln has never he never was with a program that could recruit that way, like a blue blood. And he didn't know any better. Yeah, Okie Light's awful. Yeah, he was better than any of them. Yeah, that were, yeah. Mm-hmm. And yes, Okie Light, yeah, what are they? I think they were at 70th the last time I looked or something like that. And, here they are. I mean, they hired a Division II defensive coordinator to come be co-DC. I mean, they went from having one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. They lose him to Ohio State, and they really only lost him to Ohio State because they wouldn't give him more money. Instead, Gundy took a pay raise instead of paying him and keeping him. Then they go and get the guy from Auburn, and he lasts a year because it's so bad going around over there. It's so bad that they're losing these guys left and right that dude lasts a year. And then oh yeah, he's done this before. He outsmarts everybody. Bro, there's always a day that comes for every coach that the game passes them by because it never stops evolving in college football. The NFL is slower. The NFL is much slower to evolve, but college football is where the innovation happens. What's this? No, it doesn't mean that they won't. It doesn't mean that they won't. But here's the thing. They could recruit better. They could already have recruited better. When you have the record that they have over the last 10 years, even though they're not winning things of importance, but they win a lot of games, right? When you have that, you should be able to capitalize on that. And I'm going to tell you, when you have $7 million, $7.5 million to pay your head coach, you can get guys in there that will out recruit his ass. I think of a guy like Jeff Traylor at UTSA. You going to tell me that guy isn't better? A guy like, there's plenty of dudes like this. What about the guy down at Tulane? You going to tell me that he can't do it? There's plenty of guys out there that would jump at the opportunity to have the facilities and the backing that Oklahoma State has. They do this to themselves. Period. Venables already owns Oklahoma recruiting. Already. Yeah, and that's good. But the bottom line is this: there's other places to get these guys. There's other places to get them. There's other ways to win. And again, but here's the deal: if you do go and get Colorado, you're probably screwed still. And in the end, their opportunity to kind of stay above the fray was to keep their team together from this past season, even though they kind of fell apart. If they'd have kept them together for one more go around, right? One more go around, establishes themselves as one of the top teams in the Big 12, particularly when Texas and OU are gone, then they have a chance to be at the front of the recruiting line. Cody will tell you, the guy from Locked On Oklahoma State, he's a buddy of mine. But I've told him, man, you're hoping and praying for this, but right now, it's not looking good for them. And it isn't. And it's because there are so many people that are so reluctant to even think about firing Gundy, which is crazy to me. Crazy to me. The guy's won 3 times against Oklahoma. 3 times. Yeah, he proven he can do more with less. Okay, yeah. But it doesn't stay that way. Nothing stays the same. Nothing stays the same. And because you proved that you could do more with less, you should have been able to do more with more, right? When recruits see that, man, he brings in guys, he finds those diamonds in the rough from the 3-star, I could go and work with this guy, Because if I come in there, then I'm going to bring some dudes with me. Talk about a quarterback, You go in and you get a guy that, like Spencer Sanders was what, wasn't he a 5-star? Coming out of high school? I mean, not that I think he's that good. But I'm telling you, when you get 1 or 2 guys like that, then you have the opportunity to get more. Okay? in the end, yeah. And I'm not just going to make this all about Okie Light. I don't care about Okie Light. I don't care if they ever win again. And I don't care if they ever fire Gundy either. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they can keep him forever because I could care less. In any event, like, yes, I would have looked for some of these out of the box coaches, that some of these guys that are the up and comers, that you could have paid them $5 million and they would have out coached this guy and out recruited this guy. Period. That's it. Yeah, give him credit for pounding his head on the wall. Sure. Okay. The problem is like I said, I'm not going to keep up with this conversation. I could care less about Mike Gundy. What I am glad for is that Oklahoma and Texas have wiggled free of this conference. They can move forward. And as somebody that grew up loving the Big 12 conference, watching the Big 12 conference, I covered the Big 12 conference as a reporter. That was my first. This is my love as a conference. I don't want to see them completely irrelevant. And so this was very smart of them to get this crap out of the way, because now that, and especially now that you have a commissioner that is capable of making moves happen and thinks in different ways than just these people that have come up through the university ranks or whatever, and now they're think that it's their rightful places to be the commissioner. This guy's done bigger things than the Big 12. He can really get this done. Now, it's time for him to do it. If I'm him, now that you have this out of the way, you made everybody happy, go secure the rest of it, or else it doesn't matter. And I think that that's clearly what he was trying to do. I think that it's clearly why he made the choice to continue the negotiations, to keep everybody at the table. Because again, he knew that if Oklahoma stays for 2024, then they watch them walk for nothing, or for whatever they can get out of the 99-year deal, which does not help the rest of the league. It's just for the league. So I don't know, guys. You guys let me know what you think. I appreciate this many people jumping in here, man. I hope that you have enjoyed this one. Hey, if you haven't already hit the like button, we haven't been getting as many likes for the lives. So I know you guys are in there. Jump in there and hit the like button for me. Let us know how you feel about it. Continue to support to support our program, bringing you all this content week after week. We'd appreciate that. Podcast merch, as you can see there on, it's to the bottom right. You can always support the show with tips on Cash App, Venmo, or just hit the super chat heart. And then make sure you buy your Fanatics gear off of our link. You're going to save upwards of even up to 75%. As of today, there was a few things that were that's going to help. The SEC schedule, that's probably going to be out. I want to say that they usually get that done about midway through the season. But see, that's the other reason that they probably wanted that to go ahead and hurry up. I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm sure we'll start getting some information on some of this stuff as it goes. Right. No, this was about OU. I mean, everybody, look, if you're an Oklahoma fan, there's always, it kind of gets started. The bottom line, Robert, was that we were talking about what it needs to happen for this to happen and why did it go down? Because as of a week ago, it's Friday now, as of a week ago, everybody was saying that this was over with. And I said then, there's no way it's over with, because, you even looked back at, there was, the Sports Illustrated, they were talking about the Sports Illustrated deal where they were talking about it. They kept saying how that it wasn't necessarily over with. Brett McMurphy from Action Live, he kept saying that when Missouri left, that they didn't make that decision until November, right? And then they were gone to the next September into the SEC. My thought is that it was always going to go down because of the fact that enough of everybody wanted this to happen, right? And again, Yormark knew if he lets them stay for the 2024 season, then they walk for free. You have to pay them to leave at that point. So even if you get half, you just wash it. And then, nobody's happy that they just got to walk out for basically for free. Right. And essentially that would have been what it was. Because they're at the minimum, it's going to get cut in half on that 99-year deal, leaving the 99-year deal. So if they get the 40 million, which is about what it boils down to in 2024, if they get that money, then and you go half and half on the 99-year deal, it was an $80 million penalty, then it's a wash. Nobody makes anything extra. It just washes itself. Nobody was going to be happy with that. It was a good move by Yormark. It really was. Appreciate that, Roberto, appreciate that, buddy. I'm glad everybody's in here. Thanks for joining me so late, man. It was kind of Christian from the Lone Star podcast kind of threw me up there that I would probably be live. And I was like, oh, I wasn't really planning to be. But you know what? I had enough to say. I wanted to jump in here and talk to everybody for a few minutes anyway. Got 45 minutes of it. Let me know. We'll probably be talking about this over the next few, for a while now. And obviously this opens up a lot of new storylines and things like that. Let me know, what do you guys want to talk about moving forward? And we'll kind of go from there. But thanks a lot for joining me. And I will see you guys on the next one.